everyone, and welcome to Power Ballads. I'm excited to introduce my guest today, DJ Wells. DJ, welcome to Power Ballads. Um, let's start off with just the basics. Tell us a little bit about who you are, maybe even a little of how we know each other.
All right. Hi, and thank you for having me. Excited to be here. I was born in Pennsylvania, but grew up in Atlanta. My family moved here when I was 4. And so anytime someone asks me where I'm from, where home is, I just say Atlanta because it's all I remember, it's all I know. And I have been going to and still go to the same church that I've been at and that my family has been at since I was 4. And that is how we know each other, through North Atlanta Church. And yeah, so I did my whole life through there as a child, and then on through youth group, and then went off to college at Abilene Christian University, decided to be a missionary, and lived in Russia for 7 years. And then after living in Russia for 7 years, moved back stateside, and North Atlanta can't get rid of me, so I'm still here. And have been blessed to be able to now work at the church. And before now, I was helping out with worship and leading worship from time to time. And now I get to do that as a daily and weekly part of my life. So that's been a huge blessing and opportunity that I am walking in now.
I love it. All right. A couple things I want to dig into. But first of all, and that's why I love doing these interviews because you always discover things you didn't know about the other person. I didn't realize you were born in Pennsylvania.
I
Where in
was.
Pennsylvania?
So I have not been back to Pennsylvania since we left there when I was 2, because I think when I was 2, we moved to Texas for a year and a half
Okay.
and then moved. But my parents tell me I was born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, on Bryn Mawr Avenue in Bryn Mawr Hospital. So that's a
Yeah.
cool thing that they say. But for me, I'm like, yeah, it means nothing to me. But for people that know where that is, apparently it's really close to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Yes. And Philadelphia area. So
Okay.
my best friend from high school went to Bryn Mawr College.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So or is in that area. I guess she actually went to Chestnut Hill, but it was in that Bryn Mawr area.
Okay.
And
Really small world.
yeah, it is really small road. And my husband's from the Lancaster area, which is not far away either.
Okay.
So
Did
look at
not know
that.
that.
Yeah. But so I won't ask you any trivia or anything on
Yeah, please
Pennsylvania,
don't.
but it just tells me even more that, you're a good person because good people come out of Pennsylvania.
I'll take that.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit starting off with you graduate from college and you decide to become a missionary.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about what prompted that and why Russia.
Yeah, that was a really quick whirlwind introduction. So there was a lot of life put into probably 45 seconds. But very early on, so North Atlanta Church has been heavily involved in missions since I can remember. I don't know the exact year, but it predated when I started going to the church. um, so the church has had heavy roots and a heart for missions, and so that was instilled in me as a child. There was never a time where it wasn't just part of what I did every summer. Like, it was part of life, and my spiritual journey was
Hmm.
mission work, whether it was a 2-week summer trip or whether it was, helping out in the inner city here in Atlanta, doing soup kitchens, helping out with recovery ministry, just things like that. So from a young age, that was uh, instilled in me by my parents and through the church. And then as I got into high school, we started taking the trips that weren't local anymore. We were starting to go to different countries. And I grew up, I shouldn't say I grew up, but the language that I chose in middle school and high school to study was Spanish. And so I just knew I was like, I'm going to be a medical doctor, and I'm going to be bilingual in Spanish, and I'm going to marry while I'm there, and my kids are going to grow up bilingual. Like, I just knew from a young age that I was going to have bilingual children, and I thought they were going to speak Spanish. Um, so fast forward a little bit, my senior trip through North Atlanta was to Almaty, Kazakhstan. And prior to this trip, I had never heard of Kazakhstan, didn't know anything about it, but I was excited to go because all of our trips had always been amazing. So we went to Kazakhstan. This was 2004, my
Mm.
senior year, graduated, went to Kazakhstan for 2 weeks, completely fell in love with the people, with the culture. Russian was the main language that was spoken there, although Kazakh is also a language that is spoken there. And yeah, just the church was so embracing and warming there. And so I decided that I wanted to go back the following summer for an internship and go for a longer term. So uh, a couple of other people from my class and that I grew up with and went on mission trips with also decided that they wanted to go back too. And so we went back several summers in a row for four
Wow.
to 6 week internships. And our just desire and love for missions grew. And then I believe it was the third trip that I was there. And we were doing Heaven Night. So the young adult group, or no, it was the college group from North Atlanta came and also went on a mission trip at the same time that uh, my best friend and I went on our internship to the same location. And so we coordinated beforehand, how we were going to do camp, because one of the big things that they do in Almighty Kazakhstan is work with orphans that have aged out of the system. The government, kicks them out at a certain age. So they take them in from 16 up until, I believe, 21, teach them life skills,
Mm-hmm.
about how to get a job, how to function in the world, to help them get their footing, and to also teach them about Christ and about all the things that come along with that. And so we were planning for the camp and we were like, we should do a Heaven Night. And the American in us was like, we should take a bunch of aluminum foil, and at this camp we're just going to line the walls with aluminum foil and shine these bright lights. And it sounded like the tackiest, cheapest thing ever. And can I tell you, when we were setting it up, it felt like the tackiest, cheapest thing ever. But God just orchestrated it and put it all together. And when you added that with like everyone having on white robes and all of the things that came before that, because we had them walk through like this graveyard kind. It wasn't an actual graveyard, but like one that we created. So it was like, everyone was laying down in their sin and their life and dying and being
Yeah.
reborn into Christ. And so when they walked in this huge room, it was just glowing and so bright, and all the tackiness went out the window. It was just awesome. And we were worshiping in there. And so I just remember at that moment, I was like, I feel like I'm called to do more than just summer missions and summer internships. It would be really cool for this not just to be a 2 week or a 4 week feeling, but this to be part of my day-to-day life. And
Mm.
so my friend and I, at different times, but both during that trip, felt a call to missions, and we weren't exactly sure where. We just knew that we wanted it to be a Russian-speaking country, whether that be Kazakhstan or Russia. So fast forward, we're both at Abilene Christian University. We meet a Russian couple that are there and that want to take a team back to Russia, um, specifically Yekaterinburg, but they were open to other cities. So we did a couple of survey trips to different cities in Russia. And yeah, that's how we ended up in Yekaterinburg. And like I said, I was there for 7 years and had lots of life experiences while there. And it was wonderful. And now I have kids that are bilingual, but not with Spanish. Although they are learning, one of them's learning Spanish in school now, but she's far from being able to speak it. So yeah.
I love it. So, yes, you have a beautiful wife, Tanya, two adorable daughters,
And
Toria and Jules.
depends on the day.
Ah!
They are
So
adorable.
I love how, like, part of your vision for yourself definitely, definitely followed that track, but God just had some interesting other plans in terms of location
As he
and
always does,
language.
we think we have it figured out. And he's like, yeah, not so much. Maybe this part's right, but all of this was wrong. So I'm a living proof of that.
I love it. Well, so as one of the things I'm always interested in is like, what are people's superpowers? We are, whether we think about them as our gifts, our strengths, the way that we're created. And it strikes me that really at a young age, right? In an impressionable age, growing up, going on mission trips, making this decision to go, that maybe some of you were starting to discover some of your
Mhm.
superpower. I don't know, maybe that you would have named it that or characterized it as that, but curious if, what you learned about yourself and what your strengths are, what your superpower is through that mission experience.
Yeah, so through that, and even when I was thinking about this, prior to this talk today, just like my superpower, what is that? Um, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, this started very early on, and it even feels weird calling it a superpower, but in the context, it makes a lot of sense. But now I tell people that I'm an empath. Um,
Mm.
and early on in my life, I considered it a curse. It felt like the opposite of a superpower. I'm like, why are people so needy? Why are people so clingy? They come to me with their problems and they lay it on me and it's heavy. Why am I the person that people are putting all their burdens on? But then no one asks me how I'm doing. No one cares to
Mhm.
know how I'm feeling or anything like that. Um, and I think so. When I was young, I played basketball, and then because of some childhood drama and stuff, I stopped playing basketball in fifth grade. I was just like, I'm done. I don't want to play competitive sports anymore. To this day, I'm like, I'm not a competitive person because of some of my experiences that I had. But um, when I stopped playing basketball, you know, having a high metabolism and working out all the time, like that's great if you're eating McDonald's all the time. But when you stop working out all the time and you're eating McDonald's,
Mm.
it doesn't do so good for your waistline. So I still, to this day, my dad, he's one of those hoarder people that keeps all these like mementos of stuff. So he still has boxes of all the Happy Meal toys that I got growing up, which is kind of embarrassing how many that I have because it's like boxes of Happy Meals toys. They'll probably be worth something one day. But
Mhm.
so all that to say, I gained a lot of weight and I was heavy set and overweight. So what that meant for me as a child in middle school and high school was that I wasn't the person that people wanted to date. I was the guy that everyone wanted to be friends with. I was everybody's best friend. So again, that came with the responsibility of people felt safe around me. People felt like they
Mhm.
could talk to me about anything. And part of that's cool because it's like, yeah, like I get to learn all this juicy details about people's lives and stuff, and they trust and know that I'm not going to go and share it with everyone else. But there were times, a lot of times, where it was very heavy information. Um, so in middle school and high school, like I said, I was the guy that was just everyone's best friend. And then I went to college, and my freshman year of college, I didn't gain the freshman 15. I lost 50 pounds. Um, but the empathy didn't stop, and people didn't stop coming to me. People kept coming to me. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so even throughout college, the first 2 years of college, I'm just like, what is this curse? Why did God give me this like mark of the beast that people just are clinging to me and find me and have these serious life issues that they want to share with me? And then I honestly don't even know where the shift was in my thinking, but one day I was just like, maybe it's not a curse. Maybe there's a reason that God made me this way. Maybe there's a reason that people find me relatable. People trust me. People find me as a safe space. And so I just had a mind shift and decided to
Mm.
change the way that I was looking at it. And instead of looking at it as a burden and something that I had to carry, I looked at it as a privilege and something that I was
Mm.
blessed with to have. And I'd be lying if I said that it was easy all of the time and that just because if I look at it in a different way, that it always feels fun and feels good. Because it doesn't. It still is heavy at times. But yeah, I've been able to shift my perspective on it and look at it as a blessing because I know that, not everybody feels safe to talk to certain people. Not
Mhm.
everybody feels like they can come and tell you their deepest, darkest thoughts or feelings and know that there's no judgment that's going to come from you. Know that you can be honest with them and they'll be like I'll be honest with you back and give you my feedback, but not in a judgmental way, just in a I care about you and if I feel like you're
Mm.
wrong, then I'll let you know or whatever. And so there's that open dialogue. Um so yeah, it's been a
Mm.
journey, but it's been cool to go from where I used to be to where I am now with that.
That is beautiful. And so not being an empath myself, I greatly value it in other people. And, with others whom I know who are deeply empathetic, struggle also with that sense of like, yeah, this can be a real burden as well as a privilege. What have you learned over time to help kind of protect yourself in that? Help take care of yourself so that you can be able to um, be there for others and use your gift while not completely draining yourself.
I think the biggest thing that I've been able to do for myself, and it's come from counseling and therapy sessions to like understand what all of this means and my role in all this, but I think it is understanding the difference between the true difference and meaning of what an introvert and an extrovert is. Because growing up hearing those terms, I thought that introvert meant that you were quiet. It meant that you were a recluse, didn't want to be around people. And the extrovert just meant that you were loud and bubbly and in people's faces. Because that was the definition that I was given. And that was what,
Hmm.
I heard displayed with those terms. But learning more so what being an introvert, you can be a quiet extrovert or you can be a loud introvert. And so
Hmm.
understanding that I'm an introvert in the sense that I love being around people. I love pouring into people, have people pouring into me, being around people, going to events and stuff. But I also know that my fuse is shorter than other people's when it comes to people time. And so knowing this about myself, so that way, I'm not exploding and blowing up on people, having emotional outbursts because of feeling a certain way. And then also being able to communicate this to other people. So, like, my wife knows very well, she knows this about me. And so, after 10 years of marriage, she knows, okay, when I'm getting to my place, I don't even have to communicate it to her anymore because she knows my signs. But before, I would have to be like, I'm reaching my max. Like, I'm this close to being done. Like, I can't take any more people time to where she just knows. And so, sometimes, like, to this day, we could have people over. And if they're at our house, let's say someone comes to stay with us for an entire week. Um, there's only so much time that I can give them before I'm like, okay, I just need to sit in the room for a couple of hours. And so now
Hmm.
she's able to express to them, like, it's not y'all. He has nothing against you. He's not upset. He's not avoiding you. He just has to have some time to himself to replenish so that he can be present and can be engaging and be real and not putting on a show or faking. And so I think, yeah, just self-realization and then being able to communicate that to other
Hmm.
people so that they know, because I don't ever want anyone to feel like I'm being cold towards them or anything like that. So being able to tell someone like, it's not you, it literally is me. And I just need some time to be alone. I'm not upset with you or anything like that. I just have to take some time and be alone so that way I can be back at 100% and be present.
Yeah, it's really powerful being able to understand our needs and then be able to advocate for our needs, and being able to take care of ourselves. And that's a beautiful, you're demonstrating, and being a beautiful role model to your girls as
Mm.
well. As they can see you being your authentic self and living into your gift, but also protecting yourself so that you can live into that gift.
Yeah,
Now
my
you did it.
oldest
Oh,
daughter,
sorry.
she
Yeah. Yeah.
just to add a little comedy in there. So my oldest daughter, she's 7.5 now, and her sister's 2.5, and so when she just almost every day when she comes home from school, she'll go in her room and she likes to play teacher and stuff like that. But she doesn't want her sister in the room, and so she'll be like, "I need some alone time," and I'm like, "Oh, you totally got that for me."
I
But
love it.
she'd be like, "I just need some alone time. I need some me time." And I'm like, "What 7-year-old says I need some me time?" But my daughter does. So,
So it's like, even if we don't always see in ourselves, right, the things that we need or the things that we do, once we have children, it's like a very visible mirror reflecting
absolutely.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, seen that many times. Well, now I think you are too much too humble to proactively say one of your other superpowers. So I'll say it for you. but you are a gifted musician. And so when you talked about now working at North Atlanta, not only being a member, but being working there, it's because you are our worship minister. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your story of sort of journey of getting into music, but maybe also how music is, how that interrelates with your empathetic gift and
Mm.
gifting.
Music has been an interesting journey for me because I have two parents on the complete opposite spectrum. My dad, who grew up and who was a musician and a singer, and he loves to tell people how he used to play at the same places that the Jackson Five would play, like on the same nights that they were doing stuff. So he grew up playing bass guitar and singing, and then my mother, who I love dearly, but she can't hold a note to save her life. And I've never, besides her, heard someone else sing all four parts of a four-part harmony within 3 seconds because she just goes all over the place. But yeah, so I, again, being that kid that was overweight and that everyone just wanted to be best friends with, I was very shy growing up. Which people now are probably like, how were you shy? Because I'm very opposite of that now. But I was very shy, and one of the biggest like terrors for me was singing in front of people. I did not like being on stage. I did not like singing. Which is weird because at North Atlanta there was a like children's music group called His Kids when I was younger, and I grew up like doing theater stuff, not in school but at church. So I grew up with that background, but then getting older and then trying to do it on my own and singing in front of people, I was terrified. And I would ask my dad all the time, like, how do you lead worship at North Atlanta? How do you get up on stages in front of 1,000 people and sing? And I don't know, I guess just over time going to Abilene Christian, and my favorite, like the best thing, the best part for me about Abilene Christian was the fact that there was chapel 5 days a week. And I was the chapel nerd. Everybody else that grew up going to chapel, at Christian schools and stuff, they would get the exact amount of credits that they needed per semester because you have your little like card that you have to swipe when you go into chapel. So they would, I don't remember how many it is, but you have to go so many times in a semester to get your chapel credits. I was the person that every semester I always had well over my chapel credits because I was going even well after I had reached my max. And so I love music. I love singing. I love instrumentation. I always have. Uh, and so I started leading worship at Abilene Christian because I was also on the step team there. And so even though it's not technically music, it is because you're using, steps in your body to make beats. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got into that. And then from that, I was able to get into leading worship for chapel and things like that. So I was able to slowly get over my stage fright and fear from that. And then coming back to North Atlanta, after I'd been overseas for 7 years, coming back, I plugged into the worship ministry fairly quickly after getting back and just poured my heart into it, poured everything into it with no expectation. I mean, I tell people to this day, like I never was like, oh, I want to be a worship minister one day, or I'd love to do, like it never crossed my mind. It was just I love music and I love worship. I love singing. Um, and so I enjoyed doing it. And then when the opportunity came up, because the previous worship minister let me know that he was getting ready to leave and go somewhere else, I was like, okay, well, I don't know why, but I just have this feeling. The last time I had this feeling was when I felt called to missions when I was in Kazakhstan. And I have this same feeling right now that I need to put my hat in the race. So I was like, let me talk to the people that I need to talk to and just let them know. Don't know what your plans are, but I want to be considered for this. And by the grace of God, it worked out and they asked me to do it. And I'm so happy that I have been able to do it. But yeah, music is just it's everything for me. I don't, I've never studied music officially, so I don't read sheet music or anything like that. I've always listened and learned by ear. But yeah, I just feel, I don't know, music is just special. And not just Christian music, music in general, but music just has a way of getting through to people in ways that no other
Mm.
means can. I mean, just like with artwork, like art can express itself to people in ways that nothing else can. Music just has a way of moving people and touching people. So I love that about it. And when I was in Russia for 7 years, I was in a band and would travel Russia and play music. So it's been a part of my life for a
Wow.
very long time now, and I can't see it not ever being a part of my life in some capacity.
That's amazing. Really inspiring. And um, I think you're just a huge blessing to North Atlanta. It's been amazing to see what you are doing. And for those who aren't familiar with Church of Christ background, right? Sort of traditionally, Churches of Christ have been all a cappella. At North Atlanta, we have this beautiful integration of instruments and a cappella. And I think it just gives the opportunity to show kind of the best of both. So you've done an amazing job
Mm,
bringing those together.
thank you.
Yeah. All right. So as you think about using your power for good, what are some of the things you think about kind of, in your life, and ways that that you can have, maybe an impact, or and through music, through empathy, right, through all of kind of your powers, how do you see using them for good?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me they go hand in hand with empathy and music. Um, I don't feel like I'm the greatest when it comes to words. I don't know what to I shouldn't say that. There are times that I feel like I'm wonderful with words when I need to be. Um, but when it comes to touchy moments, or when there's a loss in someone's family, a death or something that was unexpected, like I just I don't know. I don't want to say I'm socially awkward because I'm not like or anything like that, but I don't know what to say. And so I find that music is so beautiful because there's a lot of times that maybe I'm not able to speak what I'm feeling or put the words to it
Mhm.
that I want to, but maybe there's a song that expresses how I feel, or there's just an instrumental track or something that can embody the emotions and feelings that I have. And so I definitely use music as much as possible to self-express. And yeah, it gives words sometimes where I don't have the words.
Mhm. It's so interesting that you bring this up because for the last few weeks, I've been co leading a grief share support group and meet on Tuesday nights. We just had our meeting last night. And this is the very topic about the challenges sometimes when, with the way that people respond to, to a person who is grieving. And, the dreaded words of, don't don't get me wrong.
Mm.
Like, I think everyone should just put their hands over their ears if anybody starts with, like, I don't mean to offend, or don't get me wrong, right? It's like, please don't say anything.
Or even, yeah, gosh, now that you mention that, I mean, words can be so healing or they can be so harmful. And a lot of times I know people mean well, but sometimes, and that's why, because of things that I've heard that have been harmful, when people mean well, I try to be careful with my words just because I know how trying to comfort someone in a hard time and you say
Mhm.
something thinking that you're doing well by them, but you just cause them more harm. Like before we were blessed with our two daughters, my wife and I, we had a miscarriage. And some of the most harmful and hurtful stuff that we heard was from Christians trying to, in their minds, and they're, trying to do their best at consoling us and stuff, but, saying things like, oh, God has a bigger purpose, or everything happens for a reason, So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
words aren't
it is.
always what should be used.
And it just, what we talked about yesterday too is the power of just being present. And so sometimes, maybe it is like sharing a song, sitting together. You can be in the quiet, just saying, I'm here, even admitting that, like, I'm not sure what to say, but I'm going to show up and I'm going to be here is so powerful and comforting.
Hmm.
And I think about, again, your gifts of able to kind of feel right alongside with someone else, and be comfortable sort of in their grief or sorrow and be able to accept them in that. I think the world needs more of that. Um, just being able to be present. And again, and as somebody who likes to talk a lot and uses a lot of words, I have to remember too that it's like, sometimes I just need to be quiet. let people let people be. Yeah. Um, is there somebody in your life, whether it's somebody sort of, actually sort of in your circle, or somebody that you know of or heard of that inspires you, that you think is an example of somebody living out their good, and or living out their power for good, and being helpful to others?
Yeah. Um, wow. I mean, I have examples locally here in Atlanta of people, you know, the preacher of North Atlanta, I feel like has been a huge, not just spiritual mentor, but he's also been like a second father to me, just because I feel like he could have claimed me on his taxes as much as I spent time over at his house, because two of his sons I grew up with and am best friends with. And then some of my professors at ACU, with my wife not coming from America, being born in Russia and raised there her whole life. Obviously, the schooling there, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's very different, but the schooling system is very different. And so when she was asking, what's the biggest difference with the universities? Because I went to university in Russia too while I was there and studied
Mm,
for 5 years. So, I've gotten to experience both living in dorms and classes and all of that. And I said, I could say that this is true not just between Russia and American school systems, but even private and public school systems. Going to a private Christian college versus a public school is just that the amount of love and care from my professors that I got.
mm,
Because before I went to ACU, I was at another university, Valdosta State University, for a year and a half. So I have done both. Uh, but yeah, just to this day, still being in communication with some of my professors who greatly impacted my life then when I was in school and in their classes, and that would have us over. Sometimes it was the whole class that they would have over, or they would do one-on-one lunches and things like that to take different people out to mentor us. And it's just really cool to think that there's people out there that care about you beyond their job. Like, yeah, they're
mhm.
getting paid to teach you whatever their class is, whether it's a biblical class or it's a finance class, a business. Like, there's different things that they were teaching us, but outside of those classes, they were giving their personal time to invest in us and invest in our journeys, our walks, our spiritual walks, that they weren't
Yeah.
getting paid for. They weren't getting any accolades or anything out of it except for just wanting to help. And so I feel like that is a good power that I hope to use in the future someday, for
Mhm.
me to be able to pour into other. And I feel like I do that, but I want to continue doing it, and even in larger capacities where I'm pouring into people. And it has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with a paycheck or what I could gain from it, but fully from what the other person could potentially gain from it, and just wanting to invest in
Yeah.
someone else's life and in their journey.
That's beautiful. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. So, what gives you hope for the future as you look ahead for your daughters? And, because we've been focused very much on the positive here, and I want to remain in the positive, but, we do live in some crazy times. Uh, but as you look ahead, what inspires you or gives you hope?
I feel like every generation wants the next generation to be better and to do better. Um, I feel like there's probably things that my parents' generation saw about us that they were proud of us for, and then other things that they were like, oh my gosh, they might be the end of the world with the direction that they're going. So I'm sure at some point I'll have similar feelings with my children. But even at their young ages of 7 and 2, I just feel like there's been a cultural shift in how children and people treat each other. And we're far from being perfect at it. We're far from even being great at it because there's still a lot of hate and harm and hurt in this world. But I have so much hope in the future because of the generations that are younger than mine, because the things that my parents and even my generation, when I was younger growing up, were judgmental of people for, the younger
Hmm.
generations don't even look at it as something to bat an eye at. It's just like, oh, okay, I learned this about you. Cool. You want to go get lunch together? Like, it's not even
Yeah.
an issue. And so that gives me hope for humanity because there's a lot of days where I'm just like, things are so dark and just so messed up in this world. But then when I see the younger generations, the not even just the kids, but even the teenagers, that I'm just like,
Hmm.
they look at the world so much differently than we did, and so much differently than my parents and grandparents did. And that's in a good way, in a good
Hmm.
way. So I have hope that they're gonna heal the world and fix it in ways that we haven't been able to.
Yeah. I get a lot of hope and encouragement from that too. I think about how much my kids have taught me about widening my horizons, um, not being so exclusive in my thinking, but being much more inclusive.
Hmm.
And it does give me a lot of hope. Because the Gen Xers, we didn't do it. So we were counting on you millennials, but now I guess we're putting all our hopes on Gen Z.
We are.
Awesome. All right. As we wrap up, you shared with me your power song,
Yes.
and I wanted to just hear a little bit about what is it about this song. And I'm pulling up the name here. It's The Story I'll Tell.
Yes.
Um, and what makes that your power song?
The story I'll tell. So the first time I ever heard it was during the COVID pandemic. Um, Everybody was uncertain of what the future held, of what was to come next, of what the day to day was. There was a lot of hopelessness because, our norms had been completely turned upside down. People were losing jobs, people were losing family members. Like there was just so much chaos going on in the world. Um, and Maverick City is one of the groups that decided to lean into pouring into worship and music during this time where social media was just booming because people weren't at work, from 9 to 5
Mhm.
in an office like they were before. Whether they had lost their jobs or they were working remotely, people just were on their phones and on YouTube way more often than they had been historically in the past. And so uh, they soared to popularity during that time. Uh, but I wasn't really, I've been working remotely for the past 7 years anyway, so nothing changed for me in terms of working remotely or being in an office. But I came across the video, The Story I'll Tell, and like I said, I don't read sheet music. I'm all about hearing, so I hear tones and voices, tonality, I hear the instrumentation, I hear vocals, and so that's the stuff that touches me. And the vocalist on this particular song, because Maverick City is a huge group with a bunch of vocalists, but the one that sings lead on this song or does the song is Naomi Raine, and I'd never heard her name before. But since then, she is actually being thrust in and becoming very popular because she has an amazing, gifted, anointing voice, and her voice is
Mhm.
so beautiful. So if you haven't heard any of her stuff, look her up because she is truly amazing in everything that she sings, and she's just she pastors people through her music,
Mm.
as she's singing, as she's doing concerts. And so I heard the song, like I said, during the COVID pandemic and had it on repeat for probably weeks because I was just like, man, these lyrics alone are just so touching. The hour is dark, and just talking about not knowing what's coming next, not knowing what the future holds,
Mm.
but knowing that God is near and God is there and God is going to see you through it no matter what. And that's the story that I will tell, even in my dark times, that God was near and God brought me through it. Believing is hard, but God is there even in the quiet times. And so that's what the whole premise of the song is, just the story that I'll tell. Um, and so fast forward to summer of 2023, not too long ago, and I see a Facebook ad where Taya from Hillsong, or formerly Hillsong, she just recently made an announcement that she's no longer with Hillsong, but
Mm.
she I saw Taya and I was like, oh, let me click on this video because I'm just curious to what she's saying. And she was like, yeah, we're coming to Atlanta. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I'm thinking she's coming with Hillsong. And then as I'm watching the 1 minute ad, it's talking about it's the It's Now concert and it's me and Naomi Raine. And I'm like, oh, and Tasha Leonard's Cobb. And I'm like, wait, I know Tasha Leonard's Cobb and Natalie Grant. And I'm like, wait, what? Four women in a power, like this is a powerhouse of women coming together to do a concert. I don't think it's ever been done before. So I'm like, I need to get tickets. So I went and got tickets immediately. Like I said, we went, I believe it was in June, but we went to the concert. And I've been to a lot of concerts in my life, Christian concerts, you know, I don't like using the word secular, but non-Christian concerts.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Beyonce concerts multiple times, and can I tell you, Beyonce is like top tier when it comes to showmanship and lights, sound. Like, she and the Taylor Swifts of the world, like, they have
Mm-hmm.
huge production. This was the first time that I went to a concert that I felt like it was on the level of Beyonce and Taylor Swift, but it didn't have all of that huge production. It still had a huge level of production, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but it wasn't flashy. There weren't dance numbers. There weren't, 50 people up on stage singing and dancing. It was these four women, and it was some backup singers. It was some lights and some fog, because fog makes any scene, a little bit more intense and better. But gosh, their voices, and just those four women singing as four, singing as two, singing, their
Mm.
individual songs. It was just so powerful. And I'm like, if there was ever a concert that was better than a Beyonce concert, it is this one.
Wow.
I'm still to this day like in awe. And then, of course, that song came on and Naomi Raine started singing The Story I'll Tell. And I was just taken back to that moment, back when COVID was first happening. And it's just such a powerful song. It really
Mm.
is. So that is my power song in the good times and in the bad times, because it's just such an awesome song.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, DJ. It's been fun getting to talk to you a little deeper than we normally do, right? Not just hey, what's on the docket for this week and for worship,
Right.
but to really get to hear more of your story. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right.
Good. Power.
Good. Power. Good. Power. Good.
Power. Good. Power.
Good. Good. Power. Good. Power. Good.
Power. Good. Power.
Good.